The wedding at the Plaza Hotel was supposed to be perfect. Every rose petal flown in from California, every guest dressed like royalty, every spotlight aimed at the Caldwell family dynasty. But perfection cracked the moment the grand doors opened, and Harper Linwood stepped in. No one recognized her at first. She wasn't the scared girl they had tossed aside 2 years ago. Tonight, she walked across the marble floor in a champagne gold gown that shimmered under the chandeliers. The entire room fell silent, not because she was breathtaking, but because of the 2 small children holding her hands. 2 toddlers with storm-gray eyes. Caldwell eyes. Whispers shot through the air like sparks jumping from a live wire. Are those? They look just like Dylan. Impossible, his mother said. The girl terminated. At the head of the aisle, Dylan Caldwell froze, the smile on his face collapsing as if someone had ripped the ground out from under him. His bride, Aubrey Sinclair, tightened her grip on his arm, sensing a disaster she couldn't yet name. But the person who reacted the strongest was Beatrice Caldwell, the iron-willed matriarch who thought she had erased Harper from their world forever. Her eyes widened, then narrowed, her fingers digging into her diamond-clad clutch. Harper kept walking, steady, unbothered by the stares. Inside, her heart was pounding hard enough to bruise her ribs, but she refused to show it. Not tonight. Not in front of the family that once called her worthless. At her side was Adrian Mercer, the enigmatic billionaire who had insisted on escorting her. His presence alone made guests shift uneasily. Powerful men like him didn't show up somewhere without purpose. Beatrice finally stepped forward, voice trembling with outrage. "You," she hissed. "How dare you show your face here?" Harper lifted her chin. "I was invited." And Combres. The room erupted, but none of them knew Harper hadn't come to ruin the wedding. She had come because the truth was about to break loose in a way none of them could control. And the first crack was only beginning. Long before she ever stepped into the plaza that day, Harper Linwood had learned the hard way that the world could flip against her without warning. 2 years earlier, she had stood on a freezing Brooklyn sidewalk, gripping a sonogram photo in her trembling hands, believing love would protect her. She had been wrong. Back then, her relationship with Dylan Caldwell felt like a miracle. He had been warm, tender, impulsive in the sweetest ways. He would bring her coffee from the cafe near her clinic, kiss her forehead while she worked late, whisper promises about a future where her worries didn't exist. Harper believed him, believed every word right up until the moment his mother intervened. Beatrice Caldwell, the untouchable queen of the Caldwell Empire, had shown up unannounced at Harper's tiny apartment. She hadn't yelled. She hadn't threatened. She had simply smiled, cold and patient, as she slid a check across the table, more money than Harper had ever seen in her life. "This should cover everything," Beatrice had said, her tone dripping with elegance and disdain. "And when the procedure is done, you will sign a non-disclosure agreement. Dylan's future cannot be compromised by this." This meant the baby Harper wanted, the baby that already had a heartbeat. Harper shredded the check in front of her. Beatrice didn't flinch. She simply narrowed her eyes, as if calculating the weakest point to strike. Within 48 hours, Harper was fired from her clinic for unprofessional conduct. End quote. Even the massive, end quote. Her landlord tried to evict her after a sudden complaint from a concerned neighbor. And Dylan stopped answering her calls entirely. Only much later did Harper learn the truth. Beatrice had told him Harper terminated the pregnancy and moved away to start over. A fabricated story wrapped in just enough sorrow to make it believable. Alone, jobless, and carrying twins, Harper spiraled. She worked night shifts at a small deli until her doctor warned that the stress was putting the pregnancy at risk. She cried silently into her pillow every night, wondering how love could vanish so ruthlessly. But she survived. She gave birth to Sophie and Samuel, tiny, perfect, and worth every wound she carried. Standing in her cramped apartment months later, Harper made herself a promise. "One day, I'll walk into a room and no one will ever see me as weak again." As it goes. She never imagined that one day would be Dylan's wedding day. Nor did she imagine that someone was already planning to use her return for reasons far more dangerous than she knew. Because another secret was waiting to explode, one that could ruin not just the wedding, but the entire Caldwell empire. On the morning of his wedding, Dylan Caldwell stared at his reflection in the floor-to-ceiling mirror of the penthouse suite. The tux fit perfectly, the hair styled to flawless symmetry, every detail crafted to uphold the image of a polished heir ready to lead the Caldwell empire. But his eyes, those gray, storm cloud eyes, betrayed something else entirely. A decade of guilt had carved itself into the lines around them. He should have been happy. Today was the culmination of every expectation placed on him since childhood. Marrying Aubrey Sinclair, the daughter of a financial titan, uniting two legacies, stepping fully into the role his mother had shaped for him. Instead, he felt like he couldn't breathe. Memories he'd spent years burying clawed their way up, Harper laughing in the passenger seat of his Jeep, Harper studying late at night while he brought her snacks, Harper holding a tiny sonogram photo with terrified, hopeful eyes. He used to imagine a life with her. He used to believe he could choose love over duty. But Beatrice Caldwell made sure that dream died long before it bloomed. "Dylan," Beatrice called from the sitting area, her tone crisp and managerial. "The Sinclairs will be here within the hour. Fix your posture. You look unsure." "Because I am," he wanted to say. Instead, he straightened his shoulders like a trained soldier. Beatrice floated toward him in a navy designer gown, elegance wrapped in steel. She adjusted his bow tie the way one might tighten the strings on a puppet. "Remember," she murmured, "after today, we secure the Sinclair contract, the board votes shift in our favor, and the project approvals go through. Your marriage isn't just a marriage, it's our future." Dylan nodded mechanically. He hated himself for it. When he finally spoke, his voice cracked. "Do you ever think about Harper?" Beatrice's expression hardened instantly. "That girl was a threat," she hissed quietly. "A distraction, a burden waiting to happen. I removed her from your life because you were too naive to understand what was at stake." Dylan swallowed. "I loved her." "You were 24, she snapped. "You loved whatever was convenient." Dylan looked away, guilt clawing through him. If Harper truly moved away and terminated the pregnancy, was he partly to blame? Had he failed her? Across the suite, Aubrey entered, glowing, beautiful, oblivious to the storm brewing inside her groom. She kissed Dylan lightly and adjusted her diamond earring. "Ready, baby?" He forced a smile. "Yeah, ready?" But deep inside, a whisper stirred. What if Harper hadn't moved on? What if Beatrice hadn't told him the whole truth? Moments later, a groomsman rushed in, pale as linen. "Sir, you need to come downstairs. There's someone here." Dylan felt his chest tighten. He had no idea his past hadn't just returned. She had walked into the building carrying the two secrets that could destroy everything. While Dylan rushed downstairs, Beatrice Caldwell remained in the penthouse suite, smoothing the fabric of her gown with icy precision. She despised disruptions, especially on a day she had crafted with surgical perfection. To Beatrice, weddings weren't sentimental events. They were business mergers wrapped in flowers and champagne. And this merger in particular would secure her empire for decades. She moved to the window overlooking Manhattan, the skyline glittering like a crown she believed she deserved. Everything she had built, Caldwell Holdings, her reputation, her influence in city politics, had been carved from ruthlessness. Compassion had no place in her world. But underneath her flawless exterior, a storm churned. Because Beatrice carried a secret she'd buried deeper than anyone knew. 2 years ago, when she discovered Harper was pregnant, she hadn't simply pushed the girl out of Dylan's life. She had done something far more calculated and far more dangerous. The arrangement she made with the clinic director hadn't only been about silencing Harper. It had been about laundering money through the clinic's charity wing, using Harper's case as a cover. If anyone connected the dots, the fallout would be catastrophic. And now Harper was here, alive, with children. Children who looked unmistakably Caldwell. Beatrice's pulse spiked. She had assumed Harper terminated the pregnancy. She had paid handsomely to ensure it. The doctor had sworn it was done, paperwork had been filed, records had been sealed. But those twins, those eyes? No, she muttered under her breath. She couldn't have survived that without someone helping her. That someone worried Beatrice, especially since she'd spotted Adrian Mercer in the room, towering, calm, observing everything like a man used to running empires far larger than hers. Adrian didn't attend weddings unless there was leverage involved, and leverage was something Beatrice couldn't allow him to find. Not now. Not today. Not when the Sinclair merger was moments from being locked in. She snapped open her clutch and retrieved her phone. "Get me Hollister," she ordered sharply. Hollister was her private fixer, an ex-detective whose morals were as negotiable as his fee. "We have a situation. I need the girl removed discreetly, and I need everything from 2 years ago to stay buried." She ended the call, chest heaving. Outside the suite, footsteps thundered down the hall. A bridesmaid burst in, breathless. "Mrs. Caldwell, something's happening downstairs. Everyone's talking." Beatrice stiffened. "What do you mean, everyone?" The bridesmaid swallowed. "It's Harper. And—" she hesitated. "Ma'am, she didn't come alone." A chill ripped through Beatrice's spine. For the first time in years, the queen of the Caldwell Empire felt something she didn't recognize: fear. The moment Harper stepped into the ballroom, she felt the familiar sting of being watched, judged, dissected, silently ranked beneath everyone in the room. The plaza's chandeliers cast a golden glow over the guests, but the air felt razor-sharp, buzzing with murmurs about her sudden appearance. She could feel the weight of it pressing against her ribs. But she wasn't alone. Standing beside her, tall and composed in a charcoal suit, was Adrian Mercer, the man everyone recognized even if they'd never met him. CEOs straightened their ties when he passed. Investors whispered. Socialites tried not to stare too hard. Adrian had a presence that unsettled people. He carried the quiet confidence of someone who never lost a battle. Harper held Sophie's hand while Samuel clung to her dress. Adrian noticed her trembling fingers and leaned slightly toward her. "You're doing fine," he murmured. "They don't get to define you anymore." She exhaled shakily. "I shouldn't have come. This was stupid." "No," Adrian said firmly. "This was necessary." End quote. "Taken stands," end quote. His tone wasn't tender, it was resolute, as if he understood the battlefield better than she did. They hadn't always known each other. Fate had thrown them together in the strangest way. Months ago, Harper had fainted in the hospital lobby after a grueling shift. Adrian, there for a board meeting, was the one who caught her before she hit the floor. He stayed until she woke up. He bought formula when she couldn't afford it. He helped her find night care when her twins were sick. He never asked for anything in return. He respected her boundaries, but he never hid the truth either. He admired her strength more than she realized. Now, as whispers filled the ballroom, Adrian subtly shifted, positioning himself between Harper and the harshest stares. The move was protective, instinctive. His eyes swept the room, calculating. "That man approaching is the head of the Sinclair family," Adrian murmured. "He looks ready to cause trouble. Stay beside me. If you arson him, about the Bowder people." Harper froze as Vincent Sinclair, Aubrey's father, strode toward them, jaw clenched. "So this is the woman?" he asked coldly, eyes raking over her with thinly veiled contempt. "The one your groom failed to forget?" Harper felt heat crawl up her neck. She didn't know what to say. Adrian stepped forward before she could speak. "Mr. Sinclair," Adrian greeted coolly. "I'd choose your next words carefully." Vincent raised an eyebrow, amused. "And who might you be? Her attorney?" Adrian smiled faintly, dangerously. "No, someone with far more influence over what happens to your daughter's future." Vincent's expression flickered. Harper stared at Adrian, startled. "What are you doing?" "Handling a problem," he whispered. But even Adrian couldn't predict what would happen next. Because behind them, a gasp rippled through the crowd. Dylan had just seen the twins up close. Dylan stumbled forward as if someone had punched the air out of his lungs. His eyes locked on Sophie, first her tiny curls, her dimpled cheeks, then Samuel, gripping Harper's dress with the same stubborn tilt of the chin Dylan had as a child. His lips parted, trembling. "They're—" he swallowed hard. "Harper, they're mine?" Harper didn't answer immediately. She didn't owe him softness. She didn't owe him protection. But the entire ballroom leaned in, waiting. "Yes," she finally said, voice steady. "They're yours. And they've never needed anything from you." Dylan staggered a step closer, torn between awe and devastation. "Why didn't you tell me? God, Harper, I would have been there." Harper's laugh was soft, bitter. "Your mother made sure you never heard the truth." Dylan froze. All color drained from his face. Before he could respond, Aubrey, his bride-to-be, pushed through the crowd. Her veil was slightly crooked, her expression wavering between shock and humiliation. "Are you kidding me?" she whispered, voice breaking. "Dylan, you told me she left. You said she didn't want a family." I thought she terminated," Mom told me. Aubrey recoiled as if burned. You believed that? And you never checked? Never wondered why she vanished overnight? Harper closed her eyes briefly. She didn't want pity, not from Aubrey, not from anyone. But hearing another woman speak the truth felt validating. Dylan turned back to Harper, eyes glossy. You should have found me. You should have told me yourself. Harper stiffened. There it was. The blame, the entitlement. I was homeless, Dylan, she said quietly. Jobless, pregnant. Your mother cut every lifeline I had. And you, her voice cracked before she steadied it. You never came looking. Silence fell like a heavy curtain. Adrian stepped subtly closer to her, a quiet wall of support. Dylan noticed. His jaw tightened. Who is he to you? Harper didn't flinch. He's someone who showed up when the father of my children didn't. The words hit Dylan with full force. His shoulders collapsed inward. Aubrey backed away, shaking her head. This wedding is a lie. Gasps erupted across the room. Beatrice Caldwell appeared at the edge of the crowd, face pale, lips pressed into a dangerous line. Her gaze flicked from Dylan to Harper, to the twins, then finally to Adrian. Her power, her control was slipping. She felt it. Everyone did. And then she spoke, voice sharp enough to cut the night in half. Get those children out of here before someone gets hurt. The ballroom erupted into chaos. And Harper suddenly realized Beatrice wasn't making a threat, she was making a promise. Harper froze. The way Beatrice said those words, calm, sharp, controlled, felt like a knife pressed against her spine. People heard the threat, but no one reacted. No one stepped in. Because in a room full of wealth and power, parents like Beatrice Caldwell were untouchable. For a moment, Harper felt herself slipping back into the girl she once was. Fragile, alone, terrified. But then Sophie whimpered and pressed her face into Harper's thigh, while little Samuel gripped her hand tighter, sensing danger bigger than his tiny world could hold. Harper straightened, spine stiffening. No one is touching my children, she said, her voice steady, carrying across the marble ballroom. A murmur swept through the guests. Adrian took one subtle step forward, positioning himself between Harper and Beatrice's increasing rage. His presence shifted the air, cold fury wrapped in impeccable tailoring. Beatrice, Adrian said quietly, choose your next move carefully. Beatrice scoffed. You think you can intimidate me? This is my son's wedding, my family, my legacy. Incorrect. Adrian's voice didn't rise, but the threat in it was unmistakable. Your legacy is already burning. All you can decide now is whether you burn with it. Gasps rippled through the guests. Dylan, still pale and shaking, finally broke through the crowd. Mom, stop, please. You're making this worse. Beatrice turned on him, eyes wild. I did everything for you. Everything. And now you stand there and let this girl humiliate our family? Aubrey stepped forward, her voice icy. Your family humiliated itself. I'm done. She lifted her engagement ring and let it drop into Dylan's shaking palm. Another shockwave tore through the ballroom. Beatrice's lips curled. Fine. Let her leave. Let them all leave. Security. She lifted her hand, but Adrian grabbed her wrist midair. The entire room went dead silent. You will not issue another command, Adrian said softly, unless you want your entire life dismantled in front of these people. Beatrice yanked her arm back. You don't have that power. A small, cold smile touched Adrian's lips. I already used it. Before anyone could ask what he meant, a hotel coordinator sprinted into the room, out of breath. Mrs. Caldwell, there's a situation outside. The press is here, all of them, and they said they were tipped off about a scandal. Every face turned toward Adrian. He didn't deny it. Beatrice's entire body went rigid. Her empire, her image, was seconds from collapsing. Harper's heartbeat pounded in her ears. And then the coordinator added, voice trembling, they're asking for Harper Linwood. They say she's the whistleblower behind it all. It's $5. That dollar's not of fiver, daughter's not of. The entire room whipped toward Harper just as the doors to the ballroom slammed open behind her. The ballroom doors burst open with a force that startled even the calmest guests. A wave of flashing lights spilled into the entryway as reporters surged forward, held back only by hotel security. Harper instinctively pulled her twins closer. Sophie whimpered. Samuel buried his face in her shoulder. She wasn't supposed to be the center of any story, especially not this one. But the moment the coordinator said Harper was the whistleblower, every head in the room pivoted toward her, with a hunger she recognized all too well. The hunger for spectacle, for scandal, for blood. "Is it true?" someone whispered. "Did she leak something? What does she have on the Caldwells?" Beatrice's voice sliced through the noise. "She's lying. She's trying to ruin us." Her face was flushed, her composure cracking like thin porcelain. But Adrian stepped forward before Harper could be swallowed by the chaos. "No," he said clearly, addressing the room. "She didn't contact the press. I did." A stunned silence followed. Adrian continued, tone calm but lethal. "And the story is not about her. It's about the illegal financial practices Caldwell Holdings has been hiding practices." Mrs. Caldwell thought she buried. A ripple of shock tore through the guests. Beatrice trembled with rage. "You arrogant little—" "Don't finish that sentence," Adrian warned quietly, "unless you're ready to hear what else I found." Harper's stomach twisted. She had never asked Adrian to fight her battles. She didn't want to be used as a weapon, a pawn in someone else's war. She stepped between Adrian and Beatrice. "Stop," Harper said, voice low but steady. "This isn't why I came. I don't want to fight. I don't want a scandal. I just wanted Dylan to know the truth." "If you dumb vista." Beatrice laughed, a sound brittle and broken. "You naive girl. You think truth matters here?" Harper straightened, her voice rising with unexpected strength. "It matters to me. It matters to my children. And it should have mattered to Dylan." At the mention of his name, Dylan flinched as if struck. Aubrey watched him with a mixture of disgust and pity. "Harper," Dylan whispered, stepping forward. "I swear I didn't know. Let me make this right. Let me be their father." "We so." Harper shook her head slowly. "You had 2 years to be a father. And you weren't there." Guests nodded subtly, murmuring. The tide was shifting. Sympathy was moving toward Harper. Beatrice saw the shift too, and panic clawed into her eyes. "No," she whispered. "This isn't happening. I won't let this happen." She lunged toward Harper, but Adrian caught her arm mid-air, and at that exact moment, a security guard rushed into the ballroom, breathless, pale, frantic. "Mr. Mercer, Ms. Linwood, you both need to come outside right now. The reporters just received new documents, and it looks like—" He swallowed hard. Someone leaked evidence that Beatrice Caldwell paid a doctor to falsify medical records. The ballroom erupted, and Harper felt the ground tilt beneath her feet. The ballroom had become a storm, with no center voices clashing, cameras flashing through the glass doors, guests scattering like startled birds. But in the middle of the chaos, Harper stood perfectly still, clutching her twins as the security guard's words echoed in her mind. Beatrice falsified medical records. Records about her. Records about her pregnancy. Her vision blurred for a moment, not from fear, but from the weight of finally hearing aloud what she had always suspected. She wasn't crazy. She wasn't weak. She hadn't imagined the cruelty. Beatrice had tried to erase her. Dylan's face turned ghost white as realization crashed over him. "You mean Mom lied about everything?" Adrian crossed his arms, voice cold. "Not just lied. She orchestrated one of the most calculated manipulations I've ever seen." Beatrice's scream tore through the ballroom. "You don't know anything. I protected this family. By destroying another one?" Harper shot back. The room went silent. Even the violins in the corner halted mid-note. Harper stepped forward, the twins at her sides like anchors, keeping her upright. "When I told Dylan I was pregnant, I thought we'd face it together. I thought love could be enough." Her voice cracked, but she didn't stop. "But you," she fixed her gaze on Beatrice, "decided your son's image mattered more than the lives growing inside me." A few guests gasped. Some shook their heads in disgust. Others whispered, horrified. Harper inhaled shakily. "You didn't just fire me or threaten me. You tried to erase my babies. You tried to erase me." Beatrice stumbled backward, pupils shrinking. "You were nothing. A liability, a trap waiting to happen." A murmur rose ugly, disbelieving. Harper's fingers trembled around Samuel's hand. She felt Adrian's steady presence behind her, grounding her. Dylan finally stepped forward. His voice trembled. "Mom, did you really tell Harper's doctor to file a termination report? Did you really cut her off from me?" Beatrice didn't answer. She didn't have to. Her silence was confession. Aubrey watched with folded arms, jaw tight. Wow. And to think I blamed Harper. You Caldwells are catastrophic. Dylan turned back to Harper, eyes filled with raw regret. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. If I had known any of this, I would have fought for you, for them. Harper blinked slowly. Pain, anger, a flicker of old love buried under too much betrayal to revive. It's too late, she whispered. Dylan's breath caught, but before anyone could respond, a hotel worker rushed inside, face drained of color. Mr. Mercer, Miss Linwood, someone outside just leaked the full audio recordings. Reporters are saying the scandal is bigger than expected. They're calling it the Caldwell conspiracy. Every head whipped toward the entrance. And this time, Harper didn't feel fear. She felt something else rising inside her. Because the next person who walked through that door would change everything. The ballroom's doors swung open again, but this time, not with chaos. With purpose. A tall woman in a navy trench coat stepped inside, holding a slim laptop pressed against her chest. Her badge caught the light. New York State Attorney's Office. A collective gasp rippled through the wedding guests like a shockwave. Beatrice Caldwell visibly paled, gripping the back of a chair to steady herself. The woman introduced herself coolly. Deputy Attorney Marissa Grant. I believe some of you have been expecting me. No one had, but the way she said it made it sound inevitable. She set the laptop on a table and pressed play. A familiar voice crackled through the speakers. Beatrice Caldwell, recorded 2 years earlier. I don't care what the girl wants. Make the report, show termination. Seal it. And if she tries to keep the pregnancy, I'll ruin her so thoroughly she won't have the strength to fight back. End quote. Harper clenched her jaw, the sound slicing her open all over again. Another voice followed Dr. Levins, the clinic director. Are you sure? The girl's medical chart shows complications. She needs support. Support? Beatrice scoffed. She needs to disappear. The ballroom erupted. Is this real? Oh my God. She actually said that? This is criminal. Marissa Grant nodded. These recordings were released anonymously earlier today, but they match the sealed clinic records we've been investigating for months. Beatrice shook her head violently. No, this is taken out of context. I never meant, but Marissa didn't let her finish. There's more. She clicked again. Beatrice's voice returned, colder this time. Dylan will marry someone worthy, someone with pedigree. I won't let that girl drag us into scandal. Dylan looked like he might collapse. Mom, how could you? Beatrice's facade finally cracked. All I ever did was protect you. This family, our name, everything we built. Marissa raised a hand. And you'll have the opportunity to explain all of that in court. The air froze. Court? Dylan whispered. Yes, Marissa replied. Mrs. Caldwell is under investigation for medical fraud, coercion, obstruction of justice, and potentially human endangerment. Beatrice lurched forward as if to protest, but Vincent Sinclair blocked her path. This merger is over, he said coldly. Your family is toxic. Aubrey didn't hesitate. Consider the wedding canceled. Beatrice's world collapsed right in front of her. But Marissa wasn't finished. She turned toward Harper. Miss Linwood will need your testimony. And your children's birth documentation. Harper swallowed, tightening her grip on her twins. Of course, she whispered. Behind her, Adrian stepped close, voice low and steady. You're not going through this alone. End quote. But before Harper could answer, a security guard sprinted into the ballroom again. His voice shook. Miss Grant, Mr. Mercer, Harper, there's something else. Someone outside just claimed they were paid to target Harper 2 years ago, and they want to confess. Harper's blood ran cold, because the person stepping into the doorway wasn't a stranger. It was someone she once trusted with her life. The ballroom fell into a tense hush as the figure stepped into view. Harper felt her stomach clench, her lungs tighten. It was Nora Bennett, her former roommate, her closest friend during her pregnancy, the woman who had held her hand during contractions, and then disappeared without explanation the day Harper was discharged. Harper's voice came out as a whisper. Nora? Nora wouldn't meet her eyes. Deputy Attorney Grant motioned her forward. Miss Bennett, you said you had information relevant to the Caldwell investigation. Nora nodded stiffly. She looked fragile, haunted nothing like the confident woman Harper once knew. The ballroom leaned in, hungry for the next hit of scandal. I didn't want to do this here, Nora murmured. But I can't run anymore. Harper's heartbeat pounded painfully. Nora, she stepped closer. What are you talking about? Nora finally looked at her, and Harper's breath stopped. Regret, shame, fear. All of it swam in Nora's eyes. I was paid, Nora said quietly. Paid to report everything you did, everywhere you went. To make sure you stayed isolated. Harper felt the world tilt sideways. What? Nora swallowed hard. I needed the money, Harper. My mom was sick, and I was drowning in medical bills. And then someone approached me, offering cash if I kept them updated on your pregnancy. They said it was for your safety. I believed them. Adrian's eyes narrowed. Who approached you? Nora's voice cracked. I didn't know at first. I didn't ask questions. But eventually, the instructions became darker. They told me to discourage Harper from contacting Dylan, to sabotage her job interview, to make sure she couldn't afford proper prenatal care. A shocked gasp rippled through the room. Harper felt the blood drain from her face. You ruined my chance at the clinic job? Nora nodded miserably. I told the hiring manager you were unreliable, and I told your landlord you had men coming in and out of your apartment. I'm so sorry. I didn't understand what I was part of until it was too late. Marissa Grant stepped forward. Miss Bennett, who gave you those instructions? Who paid you? Nora's whole body trembled. I only met him twice, she whispered. He said his name was Hollister. Adrian's eyes sharpened. Beatrice's breath hitched. Nora continued, voice cracking under the weight of truth. He told me he worked for the Caldwells, and that if I backed out, something bad would happen to me. In Wyndham. 2000. Gasps spread like wildfire. Harper felt her knees weaken. Betrayal from Beatrice was expected, but Nora, her friend, that wound cut deeper than anything else tonight. So yes, Nora whispered, tears falling freely. I helped isolate you. I helped them break you. I didn't know they wanted to erase your babies. If I had known that, I swear. But her words died in her throat as Hollister himself stepped out from behind the doorway. And he wasn't alone. The moment Hollister stepped into the ballroom, every whisper died. He was a tall, broad-shouldered man with a face carved in stone, cold, unreadable, dangerous. His dark suit blended into the shadows, but his intentions radiated like poison. Beside him stood two other men, silent, armed with nothing visible, but their posture screamed enforcement. Harper felt Samuel grip her tighter. Sophie whimpered. Adrian subtly moved closer, shielding them instinctively. Deputy Attorney Grant stiffened. Hollister, I assume you know you're implicated in this investigation. Hollister didn't blink. His eyes locked on Harper. You weren't supposed to be here, he said, voice low and gravelly. None of this was supposed to happen. Beatrice staggered forward, her voice trembling for the first time all night. Hollister, what are you doing? I didn't call you here. But Hollister didn't look at her. He looked at Nora. You were told to disappear, he growled. You were paid to keep quiet. Didn't act. Nora stumbled back, horror filling her eyes. You said no one would get hurt. I lied, he replied flatly. Deputy Grant lifted her hand. Mr. Hollister, you need to step away and surrender yourself. We have evidence of your involvement in multiple federal crimes. Hollister smirked. Lady, you have no idea what crimes you're dealing with. Then his gaze flicked to Harper again. You were supposed to vanish, he said. Beatrice hired me to make sure you didn't come back into Dylan's life. But you survived things no one survives. Harper felt ice crawl through her veins. What did you do to me? She whispered. Hollister tilted his head. Oh, you don't remember? Good. Some memories are better left buried. Adrian stepped forward sharply. Take another step toward her, and I'll... Hollister cut him off with a mocking laugh. You think your money scares me? You think I didn't do my homework before coming here? He snapped his fingers. One of his men produced a thick envelope and tossed it at Adrian's feet. Documents spilled out financial reports, company mergers, confidential investments. Hollister smiled darkly. I know everything about Mercer Capital, and I know exactly what leverage you have at stake tonight. The room froze. Adrian's jaw tightened, but he didn't retreat. You're bluffing, Adrian said. Am I? Hollister stepped closer, eyes narrowing. Because I also know why you're so invested in Harper. I know what you've been hiding. Harper's breath caught. What is he talking about? Adrian didn't answer. Hollister's grin widened. Oh, he didn't tell you? Of course not. Men like him never lead with the truth. Harper felt the ground shift beneath her. Tell me what? She demanded, eyes darting between the two men. Hollister leaned in just enough for his voice to echo across the ballroom. Ask him where he was the night you almost died. The room exploded in shock, and Adrian's face, usually unreadable, went completely still. Harper's pulse hammered in her ears. The words echoed, the night you almost died. Her breath grew shallow as a memory tugged at the edge of her mind. A dark hospital hallway, cold tiles, a faint beeping monitor, voices arguing, then nothing. She turned to Adrian. Tell me he's lying, she whispered. Adrian, tell me. For the first time since she'd met him, Adrian Mercer looked shaken. Controlled, yes, but shaken. He lowered his eyes briefly, as if choosing his next words with surgical caution. I was there, Adrian admitted. The room erupted in gasps. Beatrice straightened, sensing an opportunity. Dylan's confusion deepened, and Harper felt her legs weaken. You were there? She repeated, disbelief slicing her voice. Why? How? Hollister folded his arms smugly. Because he knew exactly what we were doing, and because Adrian Mercer doesn't involve himself in anything unless there's a personal reason. Adrian shot him a lethal glare. Don't twist this. No? Hollister smirked. Then tell her the truth. Harper stepped back, clutching Sophie and Samuel tighter. Adrian, talk to me. He inhaled slowly, painfully. The night you collapsed, Adrian began. I was at the hospital for a board review. I saw them rush you in. You were unconscious, dehydrated, dangerously underweight. The babies, his voice cracked. They were small. Too small. The doctors didn't think you'd make it through labor. Harper's eyes blurred. She remembered the fear. The cold. The emptiness. What does that have to do with you? She whispered. Hollister cut in sharply. Tell her who paid the medical bills. Harper's heart stopped. She looked at Adrian, really looked, and saw a shadow of guilt flicker across his expression. I did, Adrian confessed quietly. I paid for everything. The treatments, the neonatal care, the months after. I made sure you didn't get thrown out when you couldn't pay rent. Harper staggered backward. You, what? Adrian, why wouldn't you tell me? Because you would have thought I wanted something in return, he said. And because you were already drowning, I didn't want to add pressure. And Fortin. Hollister barked a laugh. Pressure? You don't think she deserves to know why you got involved? Adrian's jaw clenched. Enough. But Hollister stepped forward, eyes glinting. Oh no, we're just getting to the good part. Harper felt a chill crawl across her skin. What good part? She whispered. Hollister pointed at Adrian. Ask him how he knew your name before you ever fainted in that lobby. Adrian went still, completely still. The entire ballroom held its breath. Because Harper suddenly understood Adrian hadn't just crossed paths with her by chance. He had been watching her long before that night. Harper's pulse thudded in her ears. The room faded. All she could hear was Hollister's accusation circling her mind like a trap snapping shut. Adrian knew her before the hospital. Her hands tightened protectively around her twins. Adrian, she whispered. What is he talking about? Adrian's expression was unreadable, too calm, too controlled. A dangerous calm. Not cold toward her, but bracing himself for impact, as if he knew the truth would hurt, yet had no intention of running from it. I wasn't watching you, he said carefully. But I knew who you were. Harper's chest tightened. How? Why? Hollister stepped forward, savoring every second of the unraveling tension. Because his company vetted you. Harper's stomach dropped. Vetted me? For what? Adrian finally spoke, jaw tight. Because your clinic applied for a philanthropic grant. My foundation was one of the reviewers. Your file crossed my desk. Harper blinked. That wasn't sinister. That was normal. But Hollister wasn't finished. No, he sneered. Tell her why the file caught your eye. Tell her why you memorized her name. Adrian closed his eyes. Just for a second. Then he exhaled. Because you wrote something in your application, he said softly. Something that reminded me of my sister. Important. Harper froze. I don't understand. My sister, Elena, Adrian continued, voice gentle, was a single mother. She died from complications during childbirth. She didn't have help. She didn't have support. When I read your file, your story, your resilience, I saw her. I couldn't save her." His voice grew rough. "But I could make sure no one else went through what she did." Harper's breath hitched. This wasn't the explanation she expected. This was human, painful, real. But Hollister wasn't satisfied. "Oh, please," he scoffed. "You expect her to believe that? You didn't just review her file. You followed her case. You authorized financial transfers. You made calls behind the scenes. You inserted yourself into her life long before she knew who you were." Harper swallowed hard. "Adrian, is that true?" He didn't look away. "Yes," he said simply. "I watched over you, quietly, from a distance. Because you were drowning, and because you had no one else." "Is very dough." Harper's eyes filled with tears not of fear, but of something tangled and impossible to untangle. "But why didn't you tell me?" "Because you didn't trust anyone," Adrian whispered. "Especially men, and I refused to be another person who took something from you." Hollister laughed darkly. "Touching. But you left out the part she really needs to hear." The room tensed. "What part?" Harper asked, her voice barely audible. Hollister's smile turned razor sharp. "The grant you reviewed? The one from her clinic? The clinic Beatrice used to falsify her medical records?" He paused. "Adrian funded it." Harper's heart stopped. And suddenly, the man who had protected her might have unknowingly helped destroy her. Harper felt the air leave her lungs. The clinic. The falsified records. The place where she almost died. The place that stole her voice and nearly her children. Funded. By Adrian. She backed away as if struck. No, that can't be right." Adrian stepped forward, hands open, voice steady but strained. "Harper, listen to me. Did you fund that clinic?" she demanded, the tremor in her voice betraying the earthquake inside her. "Yes," he said. Her heart cracked. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I didn't know what Beatrice was doing," Adrian insisted. "I didn't know she was using the clinic's charity program as a cover. I had no idea they altered your medical files until I began my investigation months ago." Hollister smirked, feeding the fire. "And yet somehow, the woman you're so desperate to protect almost died in a facility you financially backed. Seems like a pretty big oversight for a man who claims to have all the answers." Adrian turned sharply. "Shut your mouth." But Harper couldn't unhear it. "You paid for the clinic," she said again, voice breaking. "The place that nearly killed me. The place Beatrice used to erase my children." Adrian's face twisted with pain. "Harper, if I had known—" "That's the problem," she snapped. "You always know everything. You always control everything, except the one thing that mattered." Dylan stepped forward tentatively. "Harper, maybe he didn't know." The fiery glare Harper shot him silenced him instantly. "Don't," she said sharply. "You don't get to defend anyone tonight. It's a Devon Hess, dollars times status, when so procession." Beatrice, sensing the fracture forming, straightened and smoothed her gown, a twisted smile stretching across her lips. "See?" she said softly, venomously. "He's no better than the rest of us. At least I never pretended to help you." Adrian's eyes hardened, jaw clenched. "Harper, she is manipulating you." "Stop," Harper whispered. "Just stop." Her voice was quieter than before, but the pain behind it made the entire ballroom still. "You helped me. You saved my children. You showed up when no one else did, but you kept the truth hidden, even when you knew I'd been hurt." "That's not true," Adrian said, stepping closer. "I was trying to protect you." "By lying?" she asked, tears slipping free. "By choosing which truths I was strong enough to hear?" Adrian flinched, as if she'd struck him. Before he could answer, Marissa Grant raised her voice sharply. "We don't have time for this. Hollister, you're coming with me." But Hollister only smiled. "Actually," he said, "I think we're still missing one truth." He pointed straight at Adrian. "Tell her why you really started investigating the Caldwell family." Adrian froze. Harper stared at him, breath shaking. "What else aren't you telling me?" she whispered. Hollister's smile widened. "Everything." And Harper suddenly realized this betrayal went deeper than she ever imagined. The ballroom held its breath, tension coiled so tightly that even the chandeliers seemed to stop shimmering. Harper's pulse hammered painfully as she stared at Adrian, waiting, hoping, fearing. "Tell her," Hollister taunted. "Tell her why you really targeted the Caldwells." Adrian didn't move, didn't blink. Didn't breathe. Harper took a step back. Adrian, please, just tell me the truth. He finally exhaled, a slow, resigned breath. I began investigating the Caldwells before I ever met you. Harper's stomach twisted. Why? Adrian's eyes locked onto Beatrice, and a rage Harper had never seen in him simmered beneath the surface. Because the Caldwell empire destroyed my family. Gasps rippled across the room. Dylan looked stunned. Beatrice went pale, gripping the nearest chair for balance. Adrian continued, voice low and steady. Years ago, Caldwell Holdings pushed through a construction project that ignored mandatory safety inspections. The building collapsed. My sister was inside. Harper's heart dropped. Your sister? Elena? Adrian nodded once. She was volunteering at a literacy program in that community center. She died because the Caldwells bribed someone to cut corners. And Beatrice led the cover-up. The room erupted in horrified whispers. Beatrice's voice trembled. You can't prove that. That file was destroyed. Adrian's cold smile sent a shiver through the crowd. No, Beatrice, you destroyed the wrong file. Beatrice staggered, clutching her throat. You've been planning this, she accused. All this time, you used that girl. Don't you dare, Adrian snapped, stepping forward with a fury that seemed to darken the room. I protected Harper because she needed it. But my investigation, that was never about her. It was about you. About justice. Harper swallowed hard. And you didn't tell me because? Because I didn't want you tangled in my war, Adrian said. His voice broke for the first time. And because the more I cared about you, the less I wanted you near any of this. Harper's breath hitched. She wasn't sure whether to cry or collapse. You should have told me, she whispered. I deserved the truth. I know, he whispered back. And I'm sorry. And Tineva. Before she could respond, Hollister let out a low laugh. Touching, but irrelevant. Because Adrian isn't the only one with history here. Beatrice's head snapped toward him. Hollister? No. He ignored her. Harper, Hollister said, smiling like a man holding dynamite. Do you know who recommended your clinic for Adrian's grant in the first place? Harper frowned. What? Who? Hollister raised a finger and pointed directly at Dylan. Harper's heart stopped. Dylan froze, skin draining of color. Beatrice gasped. Dylan, what did you? And Harper whispered the words that shattered the last bit of calm in the room. What did you do to me? Dylan's lips parted, but no sound came out. He looked like a man suddenly stripped bare. No title, no power, no mother shielding him, just guilt in its rawest form. Harper stepped toward him, twins clinging to her legs. Tell me, she said quietly. What did you do? Dylan swallowed hard. His gaze darted to Beatrice, who shook her head violently, silently ordering him to stay quiet. But something inside him cracked. I recommended your clinic, Dylan said, a year before we broke up. The room murmured, but that wasn't enough to explain anything. Harper frowned. Why? Because I knew you wanted to work there. Because you told me it was your dream, he said, voice trembling. So I used my mother's name to push your file forward. I thought I was helping. Harper stared. That wasn't a crime. That wasn't betrayal. That was... But Dylan wasn't finished. When Mom found out, he continued, she used the same connection to sabotage you. She said you were a risk, that you'd distract me. And she told them to bury your application until you... His voice faltered. Until you disappeared. Harper felt her stomach twist, but not enough to justify Hollister's smirk. That's not all, Hollister added darkly. Tell her the rest. Dylan's knees nearly buckled. Harper's heart pounded painfully. Dylan, what else? His voice was barely above a whisper. They contacted me when you collapsed. Harper froze. I didn't want the doctors to think you were alone, Dylan said, tears filling his eyes. So, I authorized the initial payment. Adrian completed it later. But What do you mean initial payment? Harper demanded. Hollister folded his arms. Oh, tell her. Tell her what you told the clinic director. Dylan shook his head violently. I didn't mean it like that. Say it, Harper demanded, voice sharpening. Dylan looked broken. I told them I wasn't sure, if I was the father. Harper felt the world crack open beneath her feet. A sharp, collective gasp rippled through the ballroom. Adrian's jaw tightened. Beatrice smirked faintly, pleased to see another fracture forming. Harper stepped back, one hand covering her mouth. "You told the hospital that?" she whispered. "You doubted me? After everything?" "I was scared," Dylan choked out. "Mom said you lied," she said. "That's all you ever needed," Harper said bitterly. "Your mother's voice, never mine." Sophie tugged at her dress. Samuel whimpered. Harper blinked hard, forcing herself not to break. "Not here, not now." Dylan reached for her, desperate. "Harper, please let me make this right. I'll take responsibility. I'll help raise them. I'll tell the world the truth. I'll—" "No," Harper said sharply. "You've done enough." Dead silence. But Hollister wasn't finished. "Oh, Harper," he sneered. "You think Dylan doubting you is the worst part? You really think this is the bottom?" The room tensed. Hollister leaned in, savoring every breath. "The clinic didn't just falsify records. They filed a report claiming you were mentally unstable. And Beatrice signed off on it." The words hit Harper like a physical blow. Mentally unstable. Filed as an official medical note. Signed by Beatrice Caldwell. The same report that could have cost her custody. The same report that could have justified locking her away. The same report that explained why no one listened when she begged for help. Her hands shook violently. Sophie tugged at her sleeve, confused and frightened, while Samuel tucked himself behind her leg. Dylan looked horrified. "Mom, you didn't. Tell me you didn't." 1 point. The C3. But Beatrice remained frozen, lips trembling, eyes darting wildly as her empire unraveled piece by piece. Deputy Attorney Grant lifted the printed report from her briefcase. "It's all here, dated 2 years ago. Psychological instability, false claims of pregnancy, recommendation for observation." She turned to Harper, compassion softening her stern expression. "This was designed to discredit you if you fought back." Harper's throat tightened. That document wasn't just cruelty, it was warfare. Beatrice finally spoke, voice cracking. "You were spiraling. You were emotional, irresponsible." "I was pregnant and terrified," Harper exploded, the pain in her voice echoing off the marble walls. "I wasn't unstable. You made me unstable." Silence. Raw. Devastating. For the first time, Beatrice's mask truly slipped. Her eyes darted from Dylan, to the guests, to the cameras beginning to gather outside the ballroom windows. She was cornered, and Harper felt something she hadn't allowed herself in years. Righteous fury. "You lied about me. You stole my voice. You stole my safety. You tried to take my babies." Her voice rose. "And you expected me to disappear quietly." Beatrice looked like she might collapse. But Hollister, he wasn't done. "Oh, she didn't just lie," he said with relish. "She prepared paperwork for an emergency guardianship hearing. If Harper showed signs of breaking down during the pregnancy, the Caldwells would have automatic custody rights." Harper's breath caught. Guardianship. Her twins taken from her before they were even born. Dylan turned to his mother with horror. "You were going to take her babies? Without telling me?" Beatrice trembled. I thought it was for the best. You were too young. She was nobody." Adrian stepped closer to Harper, voice steady and lethal. "You're finished, Beatrice. Legally, socially, financially, this room is witnessing your downfall." Beatrice's scream cracked through the air. "You think she deserves those children? She couldn't even protect herself." Harper felt something inside her shift. Not fear. Not weakness. Strength. "Yes," she said clearly. "I did, every day. Alone." Her voice didn't shake. But before the room could process her words, one of Hollister's men rushed up to him and whispered urgently into his ear. Hollister's expression faltered alarm, replacing arrogance. "What is it?" Beatrice demanded. Hollister stiffened. "Someone just leaked the final file, the one we never found, the one that proves." He stopped. The entire ballroom leaned in. The Caldwells weren't the only ones trying to take Harper's babies. A cold hush swept across the ballroom. Even the reporters outside seemed to pause, as if the air itself tightened around the walls of the plaza. Harper's breath hitched. "Someone else? Tried to take my babies?" Hollister didn't answer immediately. He was staring at the phone in his hand, jaw clenched, pulse ticking at his temple. Whatever he'd been told rattled even him. Deputy Attorney Grant stepped forward. "What file is he referring to?" Hollister slowly lifted his eyes. "The petition," he said, voice flat. "The one filed before the births. The one requesting emergency custody if Harper became unfit." Dylan flinched as if slapped. My mother already admitted. It wasn't your mother, Hollister snapped. Every head turned. Beatrice blinked, stunned. What? I didn't. Who else? Hollister looked directly at Dylan. It was you. The room exploded. Dylan's face drained of all color. What? No, I never. But Hollister held up a document on his phone. Your signature, your affidavit, your statement that Harper was unstable, unreliable, and required supervision. You filed it the same week she disappeared from your life. Harper felt her knees buckle. Adrian caught her elbow before she fell. No, Harper whispered. No, Dylan, you wouldn't. Dylan stepped toward her, shaking. Harper, I swear to you I didn't know what I was signing. Mom told me it was a routine form to protect the family. I didn't read it. I didn't. That's the problem, Harper said, her voice breaking. You never read. You never questioned. You never fought for me. You never fought for them. Dylan's tears spilled freely. I thought you left. I thought you didn't want us. You thought whatever was easiest, Harper cried. Whatever kept your world neat and your mother happy. Gasps echoed. Some guests nodded, disgusted. Others looked away. Aubrey Sinclair stepped forward, her voice cold enough to freeze glass. I can't believe I almost married you. You're even weaker than your mother. Beatrice grabbed Dylan's arm desperately. We can fix this. We can spin this. No, Deputy Grant snapped. You're both under criminal investigation. Beatrice lunged toward Hollister. Destroy it. Destroy that file right now. But Hollister stepped back. It's too late. It's already out. For the first time, the fixer looked defeated. The file was leaked to every major newsroom and to the Attorney General's office. Beatrice gasped for air. Dylan collapsed into a chair. Harper clutched her twins, trembling. Adrian stood beside her, gaze unblinking, protective, furious. Deputy Grant closed her laptop with finality. This family will answer for everything. But Hollister wasn't done. He exhaled slowly and said, There's one more thing in the file. Everyone braced themselves. Harper's voice was barely a whisper. What else? Hollister met her eyes. The petition wasn't just for custody. It listed a guardian, someone they chose to raise your twins if you were declared unfit. 1-4. Harper's stomach twisted. Who? She whispered. Hollister pointed. Straight at Adrian. Harper felt the room tilt as Hollister pointed at Adrian. Her guardian? Chosen by the Caldwells to raise her twins if she were declared unfit? Her heart pounded, fear twisting with disbelief. Adrian, is that true? Adrian didn't flinch. He stepped forward, not defensive, not ashamed, but resolute. Yes, he said softly, but not for the reasons you think. Dylan shot up from his chair, outraged. You were trying to steal my kids. No, Adrian cut sharply. I was trying to protect them, because I knew what your family was capable of. Beatrice shrieked. Liar, you manipulated everything. But Deputy Grant silenced her. Mrs. Caldwell, you no longer have the right to speak. For the first time, Harper saw fear in Beatrice's eyes. Real fear. Not of consequences, but of losing the power she wielded for decades. Adrian turned to Harper, voice steady despite the chaos. When the clinic flagged your file as unstable, I knew something was wrong. And when I found the petition with my name listed as guardian, I hired investigators. I prepared for the worst, not because I wanted your children, but because I wanted to ensure they would never end up with the Caldwells. Harper felt tears rise not from pain, but from the weight of truth. You fought for us, even when I didn't know it. Adrian nodded. I would do it again. Deputy Grant stepped forward. Harper Linwood, with all evidence presented, you and your children are not only safe, you are declared victims of an orchestrated criminal conspiracy. You are protected by the state and Beatrice Caldwell. She turned sharply. You are under arrest. The gasp that followed was deafening. Beatrice screamed as officers stepped forward. No, you can't do this. I built this city. Her voice dissolved as handcuffs clicked into place. Dylan slumped into a chair, sobbing into his hands, powerless at last. The empire had fallen. Every lie, every cruelty, every stolen chance. Harper held her twins close, heart steady for the first time in years. Aubrey approached her quietly. For what it's worth, I hope your next chapter is full of peace." Then she walked away, chin high, free of the Caldwell curse. Outside, reporters shouted Harper's name, not with accusation, with admiration. Adrian offered his hand, not demanding, not assuming. "Harper, whatever you choose next, I hope I'm part of it." She looked at him, the man who fought for her, protected her, believed in her, even when she didn't believe in herself. "For once," Harper whispered, "I finally get to choose." She placed her hand in his. The twins giggled, wrapping their arms around them both. And together, they stepped out of the plaza. Not as victims, but as a family built from truth, survival, and love that no empire could crush. Behind them, the Caldwell legacy crumbled exactly as destiny intended. Well, that's how the story closes. And if you're still here, still watching, still listening until this moment, then something in Harper's journey must have touched your heart in a way only real life can. Maybe it reminded you of your own battles, the moments you stood alone, or the times you survived what was meant to break you. The Stoics used to say, "The obstacle is the way," not to glorify suffering, but to remind us that sometimes the very thing meant to destroy us becomes the path that shapes who we are. Harper didn't win because the world suddenly became kind. She won because she refused to let cruelty rewrite her worth. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your judgment of it." Tonight, maybe we all learn that healing begins when we stop letting other people's voices define our value. And now, my wonderful friends, if you felt even one heartbeat of courage in this story, do me a favor. Hit the like button, share this video with someone who needs strength today, and subscribe so we can keep walking these stories and these truths together. You're not alone. Not here.